Hi, this is Pastor Keith, coming to you with another Come Let Us Adore Him, a daily Advent devotional by Paul Tripp. May you be blessed by these. We're on number 16. The suffering of Jesus didn't begin on the cross. It began at the straw bed and continued through to the cross, all for our redemption. Begins with Isaiah 53, 2 through 5. For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form of majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by man, a man of sorrow and acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hid their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he was bore our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we esteem him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. Paul Tripp writes, in truth, that beautifully decorated tree, like this one behind me, those glorious wrapped presents, and all the tasty holiday food, which make us happy during the Christmas season, are poor representations of the world into which God was born, and what was everyday life would be like. Jesus didn't show us for celebration. He wasn't here for a vacation. His world wasn't well decorated, and he surely wasn't well fed. He came to a world that had been dramatically broken by sin, and his calling was to expose himself to the full range of its brokenness. This is where the details of Christ's birth are important. It means something profoundly important, that the cradle of his birth was a feeding trough in a borrowed barn. You are meant to pay attention to the fact that he wasn't in a palace attended to by servants. It's important to notice that the first smells that entered his infant nostrils weren't oils or perfumes, but animal smells. These seemingly unimportant details set up a sharp contrast between our celebration at Christmas and the true condition of the Messiah's entry into our world. Most of us would be in complete panic if we had to birth a baby in such conditions. But none of this was an accident. These conditions were God's plans. They announced to us that the Messiah came not to be served, but to serve. Matthew 20:28. Since he came to rescue sufferers, it was essential that we suffer too. And his suffering wasn't reserved for the cross. It started the moment he was born. Everything he suffered was on our behalf. He would suffer but not lose his way. He would suffer and not quit and walk away. He would suffer and not grow bitter or angry. He would suffer and not respond with vengeance. He would suffer without thinking, desiring, saying, or doing even one wrong thing. He exposed himself to our world, to live as we could not live, so that as the righteous one, he would pay the penalty for our sin and give us not only peace with God, but a ticket to a future where suffering would be no more. But let shiny ornaments and bright lights keep you from seeing the dark, sad drama of life of the baby at this borrowed barn. Jesus experienced not one moment of ease in his life. Read the passage from Isaiah 53 again and let it sink in. Jesus wasn't good looking in the way that would make him naturally attractive and popular. People regularly despised and rejected him. He was alienated from the very people he came to love and to rescue. His life was marked by sorrow and grief of every kind. He willingly walked to his torture. He hung on the cross, body bruised, beaten, pierced, and broken. He did not look for escape. He did not selfishly use his power. He did not mock his mockers. He didn't do anything these things because he understood that suffering was what he came to do, and he was willing. Jesus suffered. He did not demand what was right. He endured what was wrong so that we might be right with God. The manager of his birth is a clue of what he came to do and what every day of his life would be like. The way God chose to rescue sufferers was by becoming a sufferer himself. Every moment of his suffering was done with us in mind. Every dark moment of physical relations, satirical and judicial suffering, had a high and holy purpose to it. Our salvation, you see, Jesus came to suffer because he came to be our Savior. There's nothing wrong with the shiny ornaments and bright lights. Your celebration of what Jesus willingly did for you should be a festival of overflowing joy. So celebrate the blessing you've received, the best of those being the gift of Jesus, by passing that blessing on to others with gifts of love. Eat wonderful food, but let it remind you of the lavish spiritual food that God feeds you with every day because of the willing sacrifice of the Son of God, Jesus. Here is what this means for you. Commit yourself this Christmas to be a sad celebrant. Let your joy of what your Savior has gifted you with be mixed with grief at what it cost him. Remember this Christmas that you are celebrating the birth of the man of sorrows. Remember as you celebrate that the one whom you celebrate enjoyed none of the things that likely make your celebration: a horse, beautiful things, fine food, etc. This Christmas, may your holiday joy be shaped and colored by remembering that you have eternal reason for joy because of the birth, life, death, and resurrection of your humbling, willing, suffering Savior. For further study, look to Luke 24 through 25, and verses 46 through 49. Until next time, God bless.